My parents adopted a puppy 6 months before I was born, which means they had a puppy and a baby at the same time. And they tell me that they used to repeat this mantra that went, a puppy is a baby is a puppy is a baby is a puppy, when things would become overwhelming. Both Bosco and I, we were both small and new, and we needed a lot from our new parents. We kind of grew up like siblings, but the only difference is that Bosco didn't go to school, so I got to come home and tell him all about my day. And we'd lay down on my bedroom floor, and I would gently rest my head on his chest, and I would tell him all about school. And I would listen to his heartbeat and his steady breathing, and I would know he was listening, and he was a really good listener. When we were both 13, my family was planning to move to France, and we were going to take him with us. But his Australian shepherd legs were arthritic now, and his face was white, and it started as brown. And he started to decline really rapidly at the end, especially once the house started to become more empty and boxes started to fill up. He would wander around the house, and he would stop in front of the blank walls and just stare. 2 weeks before we were set to leave, he was sleeping on my bedroom floor, and in the middle of the night I heard him scramble to stand up. And he started crying, and I started crying because I knew it was time. And I called my parents from upstairs, and they called an emergency vet. And a really nice man came in the middle of the night and gave him a shot that put him to sleep. And my mom, my dad, my brother, and I, we all had a hand on his body when he took his last breath. And I remember holding his head in my lap, and I felt it get heavier after he took that last breath. And his face relaxed and his eyes got soft. And I realized how much pain he had been in and how it had changed the way that he looked. And he started to look like a baby again, and I started to recognize him, like how I met him when I was a baby and he was a puppy. Fast forward to 2022, and my partner at the time, Lucy, and I, we decided to adopt a puppy together. Her name is Star, and she's 8 weeks old, and she's a tiny baby. But this time, I am the parent. I'm no longer a baby. Even though sometimes being a parent makes you feel like a really frustrated baby. I don't have like enough time right now to explain all the ways that I love this dog. And I'm gonna trust that you guys know this feeling. And I'm also gonna trust that a lot of people in this room have maybe raised a pet or a person from the beginning. And you understand how that kind of love is like a tether between you and that thing. And it's really beautiful and grounding to give your all to someone who's experiencing everything for the first time. But it's also really, really hard. And I found myself repeating that mantra, a puppy is a baby, a baby is a puppy. A baby is a puppy, when she wouldn't sleep through the night, or her training wasn't sticking, or whatever it was. And she just kept getting bigger and bigger really fast. She was 100 pounds in a year and a half. She was long-legged and lean, and she had a big mouth with an even bigger bark that never seemed to stop. She was also tall enough when she stood on her hind legs that she could give you a hug. She was stubborn and independent, and she did not like to listen to her parents. And there were a few moments that I keep hidden deep in myself when I felt really, really scared of her and her potential. Lucy and I broke up, and she took Star and her other dog to Asheville, where they moved. And it was really heartbreaking to watch them all drive away and to lose them all at one time. And 6 months later, Lucy calls me and she says that her and a dog trainer have decided to put Star down in 2 days. The trainer says that she is just not a trainable dog and it's the safest option. And this is a bigger story for another time that is hard to explain now, but it was pretty absurd and hard to wrap my head around. I felt really guilty at the time because my instinct wasn't to drive down to Asheville and save that dog. My instinct was to think about the little ridge on the top of her head and how her white eyebrows on her black fur made her look like she was wearing clown makeup, and how her paws were so big that you could hold them like a hand, and how every day when I would come home, I'd sit down and she would shove her face between my knees and I would squeeze her head, and I think she needed to decompress every day and needed to close her ears and her eyes with my help. It can really feel like a gift when you're helping a dog who's old or sick to pass. But she was barely 2 years old, and I wasn't there, and she wasn't sick, and she hadn't hurt anybody. So it was really hard to understand. And so when I was trying to grieve this dog, I found myself thinking about how Bosco turned back into a baby when he passed away. And luckily I only ever knew Star as a baby. And I really knew her because I was her mom. So I could picture her puppy face as clear as day. And I can see her running around this room. And she's a little bit scared because there's so many people. But she wants to say hi to everybody. And she's panting, and her tongue's hanging out one side of her mouth. And she's getting thirsty because she's running around. So she finds a water bowl, but she steps in it because her paw is so big and she doesn't know how big her body is. And she spills water everywhere. And then she comes and she sits next to me maybe, and she's kind of on alert. She's protecting me, and she's still a little scared. But she slowly lays down, and she rests her head, and it gets heavy. And then slowly, just like a little baby who can't keep her eyes open any longer, she surrenders and she falls asleep. Thank you.